Thank you, Callie and Lisa and all of you for the joy that this little child brings to us. Because there's a combination of joy and anguish in the gospel for today. Let's listen and remember that the passages that we read on Sunday typically are read, proclaimed, pondered in maybe hundreds of thousands of churches throughout the globe. It's the 13th chapter of Luke, verses 31 to 35. At that very hour, some Pharisees came and said to Jesus, "Get away from here, for Herod wants to kill you." He said to them, "Go and tell that fox for me. Listen, I am casting out demons and performing cures today and tomorrow, and on the third day I finish my work. Yet today, tomorrow, and the next day I must be on my way, because it is impossible for a prophet to be killed outside of Jerusalem." Shift in the mood. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to it. How often have I desired to gather your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, and you were not willing. See, your house is left to you. And I tell you, you will not see me until the time comes when you say, "Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord." My brothers and sisters, this is the gospel. And all God's people said, Amen. Amen. Anybody here ever done rock climbing? If you didn't go to a natural place like that, there are gyms, local gyms, that try to fabricate what it's like to go rock climbing with very secure footholds as you advance. Somehow or other, there seems to be a desire in this to conquer the heights of rock climbing. I was thinking of this image in pondering some ideas I'd like to share with you about mindfulness. Mindfulness. What does that got to do with rock climbing? Well, I want to introduce you, if you haven't heard it yet, a phrase called pure awareness. Pure awareness. Now, what does that mean? It means that we may be aware of different thoughts that come and go, but we're not tracking them. We're backing away to get what is the simple experience of being aware of life. If you go to a sunset, you're aware of the sunset, but you're aware of the experience of being there. So it involves an awareness on your part that are much greater than the thoughts that come and go. And sometimes when we're confessing, we're aware that we've yielded to some thoughts, or we've tracked them, we've followed them. Back up, and you just become aware. It's like becoming aware of being aware. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Aware of being aware. So this is what I'd like to suggest that we do in this season of Lent. In addition to whatever you might be fasting from, wherever you might be offering your intentions toward others that need prayer, as we will shortly do, we allow the thoughts to become prayerful, but then we just disengage from them. We don't track them. We don't allow them to dominate us. So here's a couple of phrases about what that means. It's characterized by direct, non-combative conceptual and unadorned perception of reality without the filtering of thoughts or interpretation, but rather a direct, unmediated experience of what is. So what has this got to do with rock climbing? Whenever we have a moment in which we are aware that we're aware, it becomes a foothold that we can use to go to the next step, the next ledge, the next rock in our ascent to God. Slaves knew what that meant. They were able to penetrate the hatred, the abuse that they received at the hands of the plantation owners. And the constant feeling of just praying together and singing together allowed them to go higher, higher. A wonderful way in which, even though there was a lot of hatred and abuse, that they were able to go beyond that by singing together, as we did before. It's allowing the grace of God to lift you higher and higher. You've heard me speak before about moments of transition in your day. And these can be very many. Little moments in which we stop doing what we're doing before we begin to do something else that we want to do or feel committed to do. Stop. And you let that pure awareness of who you are in God's sight and just let it be. All of these interests that we have in Eastern forms of meditation and mindfulness. Mindfulness meaning you're aware of what you're doing. When you're washing the dishes, you're aware of washing the dishes. What it feels like. What is the sensation? What's the water temperature? You're just aware of it without overthinking it, but you become present to the moment that you're in. That's a wonderful grace because it moves us into the center in which we forget, at least for those moments, by becoming aware of what you're doing, we become aware of what's happening at that moment. And if other thoughts come in, you just step back from them. You don't engage them. You don't complain about them. You just let them be and stop that kind of ruminations, I should say, to allow it to come to a halt and just be. We're going to close with the song, Standing on the Promises. That's a kind of shift by the composer R. Kelson Carter. He was a teacher at Pennsylvania Military Academy in 1866. And what's different about this hymn that we'll sing is the shift as though we're marching. You can march if you like, or you just shift your weight, whatever. We're not going to form platoons, necessarily. But you just allow yourself to experience that we stand on the promises. The promises of the Lord are the footholds in the rock that we go higher and higher. And we stand on the promises. Can you do that? Can you stand on the promises that God has for you and has had for you? God's purpose in bringing you into awareness. Of you being aware that you're created, that you're in the presence of God. You're in the presence of God who is covering you with the shadow of his wings. Lord, I ask that we might take that tender, tender image, a motherly image of the wings of your love protecting us and giving us that sense that you are at the center of us, helping us to take whatever else might float across our consciousness and just let it drift away. Like we hope soon the clouds today will drift away to expose the sunlight and the blue sky. Thank you for the gift of life. Thank you for being with us at every single moment. We praise your holy name.